Hey, welcome back. Steve here, and today I'm talking with Suzanne Sprague. Suzanne is a former science teacher who is on a mission to help teachers help all students in science. She has created a platform called Virtual Science Teachers, which provides engaging activities for middle school teachers to use in the virtual world. So powerful. This is such a cool talk. You are going to learn so very much. Thanks for listening. And by the way, before you go, it'd be so cool if you went to my website, stephenmiletto.com, and you could leave a review. Yeah, by going to the reviews tab at the top. Or you could go take a look at leaving me some feedback by looking at the little microphone that's in the far right corner at the bottom. And you could actually tap that and leave me a message about the types of shows you'd like me to do or something like that. As well as you could go up to the top and there's a contact page where you could actually leave me some feedback that way. There's so much more there. Thanks for listening. And I would love it if you also shared the podcast with somebody else. Could you do that? Thanks so much. Enjoy the show.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Miletto. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. Teaching, learning, leading, K-12. With Dr. Steve Miletto.
Suzanne is passionate about teaching and firmly believes in the transformative power of education to unlock people's potential. She has a background teaching in-person high school physics and chemistry and online middle school science. To make her online teaching more effective and enjoyable for both herself and her students, Suzanne developed skills as an outline content creator. When COVID-19 dramatically increased the need for online resources for teachers everywhere, Suzanne used her background in science education and love for online content creation to create and share resources that could be used during distance learning. Teacher feedback and increased use of the online resources, even after a return to in-class instruction, made it clear that virtual science teachers was meeting a need. Suzanne realized that thanks to dramatic increase in student computer use and internet access, we have a new opportunity to bring engaging, interactive learning experiences into every science classroom. So Suzanne registered Virtual Science Teachers as a 501c3 nonprofit organization and is now working with an incredible team of professionals with the mission of making science learning equitable by providing free science learning resources that teachers and students love. So today I'm talking with Suzanne Sprague, who is telling us all about Virtual Science Teachers. Suzanne, thanks for joining me today, and say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
Well, glad to have you on the show, and a couple things we need to talk about. Let's start. You are a science teacher. Where'd your interest in science come from?
I love to understand why things are the way that they are. Like when I look at a tiny little seed and I think, how did that tiny little seed become a giant tree? Or even like, when you put gasoline in your car, how does that make your car go? I had all these questions, was always very curious. And I feel like understanding the way that nature works and just how the world around us works, it's empowering to me, and it's a way, studying science is a way to get answers to those questions. So it's just a natural curiosity for wanting to understand the world around me.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool because that's a big part of it. I mean, one of the things I always loved was when I was in college and doing chemistry, where you took a powder or a substance and you did these experiments to try and figure out what it was. That was my favorite part of chemistry.
The mystery powder experiment. Yes.
Yes, you're always looking for something that you knew what it was. If you got green, it's possibly copper or something like that. It's like nice. Yes. And unfortunately,
I remember that one too.
Yeah,
the melting points, and yes, it was fun.
Exactly. And if nothing else, I also learned that the problem with doing chemistry, and you're supposed to listen to the professor who tells you, do not throw the little splints that you use for lighting the Bunsen burners into the troughs. Yes, in the 1930s when the things were built, that's what you did. But we don't do that anymore because we don't know what was thrown in there. So twice I accidentally started the lab on fire.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness.
Just to make sure it's not as bad as it sounds. I mean, it didn't really get on fire, but
Right.
it was enough to make the professor say, Steve, from now on, you're going to do your work where I'm near you.
Right. You get to work up by the teacher, huh?
Exactly.
So you were one of those students?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was supervising
Awesome.
the Saturday practices and all that good stuff. So
Oh, makes for a great story later on too, right? That's
that
fun.
it does. That it does. Yes. So good stuff. I mean, so let's switch. We're talking about virtual science teachers. So where'd that original idea for your platform come from?
Well, it's actually kind of an interesting story in that it really wasn't ever my intention initially to form such a big organization. Well, not that we're a big organization, we're pretty small right now still, but it started just as a simple desire to help science teachers and students during distance learning during the pandemic. Our family was stationed in Germany. We're a military family. And so we were in Germany and we were in lockdown a lot. So we couldn't do that much. And I was connected to a lot of teachers through Facebook groups and whatnot. And I knew that they were thrown into the deep end. Teachers who had been teaching for 20 years or more felt like they were first year teachers again. That was so overwhelming. And I enjoyed creating content for the virtual classes that I had been teaching. Virtual teaching worked for me because we moved so much. And so I shared the content that I made with the teachers online, and I created a website. It was just like a very basic website and put them up there. And I noticed that the teachers were using them a lot and the feedback. So I just kept making more and more.
Yeah, that's cool. That's, and one of the things that we have to say is that, the pandemic, a lot of things happened. So not just having to deal with this virus and all kinds of stuff like that and the health risks that it brought, but also the fact that suddenly we're having to figure out if we can do school differently.
Right.
And that's a scary thing. So, I mean, how did you function on trying to learn to do things in the virtual world, or were you already good at it?
Oh, no, there's always a learning curve. And it's a lot of like what we were talking about earlier, right? There's so many opportunities to grow, I guess, is the way to say that. It's trying things out. And yes, that worked. No, that didn't. And playing with it a lot. And I think that's really what helped me be able to get where I am now is that we had so much time on our hands. Everybody was at home all the time. And so for me, this just became my hobby. This is something that made me excited to wake up and start creating and play around with things. And so it combined my love of science, my love of teaching, and my love of technology into one big project. So I just had a great time with it. And it really did. It was great for my own mental health during the pandemic, just to have something that gave me a sense of purpose every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's, because that was a big part of one of the things that was, a lot of people got, it's kind of like you were forced into like a really short but early retirement. And you couldn't deal with it, so hey, I'm going to do something different, and out of it rose these, really trying to figure out, because a lot of school systems, especially, I don't know about where you are, but where I am, they were trying to across the state, were trying to figure out how they could get instruction to the kids, with the idea that many of them were thinking this is going to be temporary, and then one of the things you discovered was that I think there were a bunch of teachers who didn't really attend the training that they had before about using like Google Classroom and stuff like that, because suddenly they're like, what do we do? And it's like, well, you attended this. Well, so we had to have a lot of instruction on how to get started, how to use Google Classroom and stuff like that. And it was
right. It became a necessary thing to know how to do, right? Not, well, this might help your teaching. This is this is the only way you can do it. This is the only way it's going to work right now. We don't have a lot of options right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's, it's funny. I ran into, I interviewed a magician who made his money off doing school performances pretty much on the West Coast of the United States. And we talked, and he was trying to redo his whole shtick because he's like, my audience, all of a sudden that dried up. He had 300 performances that just disappeared like that, and no magic pun intended. And he had to figure it out. Well, it's funny because he figured out it's like doing a TV show or something. And and it was kind of interesting because I heard teachers say similar things to what he was saying, which is, as a magician, you're expecting to do something and then the audience goes, ooh, ah, hey. Well, teachers, it's a similar thing. You're working with them, you're talking to them, you got them doing different stuff. And if you hear nothing.
Oh, yes, I know. It's so true. When you're teaching to a group on Zoom or in any other online platform and it's just quiet and it feels like you're just talking to a wall, you don't get that energy back from the students like you usually would, right? It's a whole different game.
It really would be because I know, because I kind of live for that part as a teacher. Is like, you got this give and take, and it makes you, even if you're tired and exhausted, you can really use that energy to revitalize yourself. But when it's, hey, welcome to Steve's TV show, and today we're going to talk about, hello, are you there?
Yeah, right. Anybody? Yes. Especially when they turned off their cameras, because a lot of times you're looking for the facial expressions, either like something like, are you guys paying attention? Are you awake? Am I boring you? That's really actually, what made me make the resources that I did. I wanted them to be fun and engaging. I wanted the students to look at them and be like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. I was, expecting something, maybe less engaging. But the resources that I created, they are designed to actually include the students, and they would have to, take turns, or a lot of times I would have, if I was teaching virtually, I would have them show me with their fingers, do you think the answer is 1, 2, or 3? Which of the options, finding ways to keep them involved in the lesson. So it's not just them listening to me. Nobody wants to just sit and listen to the teacher for a whole hour. That's no matter how entertaining they might be.
It's funny because it's even, you really have to know what you're doing and have things to engage them as a classroom teacher. But then once you get in the virtual world, you better too, because they can do something unique, which is turn you off.
Yeah, it's easier to check out. Yes. Yeah, I think that happened quite a bit, and I think that was very tough for teachers because they're learning a new technology. They're taking all of the resources that were available in the classroom and figuring out how to digitize them and replacing things that they would usually do hands-on activities. Science is really tough because what's awesome about science is that it involves a lot of hands-on activities usually. And how, as a science teacher, how do you make science learning engaging over the internet with your students? That's tougher. That was and we really didn't have those resources available at the time. We've come a long ways since then. But especially at the beginning of the pandemic, that was really tough on the teachers.
Oh, it was, especially if you were, I can't imagine what it was like to have, if you were a teacher and a parent, and then not only a parent of one child, but two children or more and different ages, so that they would have to do different stuff at different times. And you're going, how am I supposed to teach online and deal with them trying to, there were some serious stresses.
Yes, extremely overwhelming. I think that's just the word. It was very overwhelming.
So much so.
But, thankfully everybody's back in class now, and now we can use these Chromebooks and iPads and other technology as a tool to add additional learning experiences, but it's not the only way that students can engage with their teacher and their science content.
You're so right, and it's cool. It's cool that we've now had this learning by fire, trial by fire type thing.
Yeah.
And but now I think it's, we've learned a lot out of it so that we can put it to use, which is what I'm guessing is part of your audience. So so let's talk about this before I get into a little more serious part of it. I love the cool penguin. All right. I mean, he's throughout the website. Any particular reason for the penguin as part of your branding? I mean, was there something you just liked about him, or is there some message you're sending us about the penguin, or what that we don't know?
No, I love this question though. Yes, there is a story behind the penguin. Actually, when we were in Germany, we lived in this little apartment complex, and we started a robotics club with the kids who lived in our apartment complex. And for as long as we were allowed to meet, and then restrictions made it so that we weren't allowed to meet. But they called themselves the Robo Penguins. And my daughter made the logo. And it's what you see now without the little VST in the middle, but it was just a little penguin with a little antenna sticking out of his head. And so it was the Robo Penguins, but I liked it so much that I stole it.
Nice. That is good to know that as an adult, you have not gone beyond the possibility of taking care of.
Yeah.
Thank you. I am very happy, my daughter, that you have done this, and now we're going to use this. So she's got to be happy that you've done that.
Oh, I have to just brag on her for a bit. And both of my kids, they have helped me so much with all of the virtual science teachers, interactives and website. I test things on them. They give me ideas. My daughter's written a lot of the code. She's 16 now. She's written a lot of the code for some of the games that are on there. They are part of it for sure. And it wouldn't be what it is today without the kids, for sure. They've been very supportive.
That's awesome to know that they're that involved in what you're doing. So that's cool. That's very cool. Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear there's a story behind the penguin, because I thought it was cool. So good stuff. So, all right. So who is Virtual Science Teachers for? I mean, who's your target audience?
Right now, the target audience is middle school teachers and students, and parents are absolutely welcome to come check it out and work on it with their kids as well. But I reach out to middle school teachers who use it with their students. And really, truly, the reason that Virtual Science Teachers, that I filed it as a nonprofit organization, is that I saw an opportunity with this boom in technology use in schools. Like now, pretty much all schools, the students have, in middle schools and high schools, the students have their own Chromebooks or other computers. And so even the schools that generally don't have as many resources, and there's some teacher shortage issues going on that are often affecting schools unequally. There are certain schools that have a harder time getting the experienced teachers, and they have more teacher shortages. Those schools, I think about them as I'm creating the resources, and then I'm like, okay, well, sometimes they have to have teachers who aren't quite certified yet teaching classes, and those teachers need extra support. So I really think about those teachers and those students and those schools as we reach out and we try to meet needs in science classrooms. So, but the resources are mostly directed at middle school level. Lots of high school teachers use them as well. And eventually the plan is to have resources for all K through 12 science standards.
Well, that is excellent. I know, and it's cool what you have there. I mean, because my next question, I'm getting ready to go into some specifics about it, but I'll just skip way ahead to something else. It sounds like, one of the things I was going to ask you is, if you have thoughts about where you're growing your programs and stuff like that. So you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. That's really at the heart of what I want to do. Is the vision for our organization is to be the go-to provider of online resources for teachers, for students, for parents, non-traditional learning environments. We just want anyone who wants to learn science or help their student learn science, be able to come to the Virtual Science Teachers website and find not just resources that provide information, but resources that engage the students, that use scaffolding and challenges and fun activities that the students enjoy, and helps any student, no matter where they're at, meets them where they're at, go from maybe having no understanding or little understanding of a science concept to growing in their understanding of more complex ideas. But it's just, that's the vision, is just being the go-to resource for online science resources that are engaging.
Very cool. It's awesome. And it's you got cool stuff there. So let's talk about this. I mean, you have quite a few resources, sections that address earth science, life science, physical science, virtual labs, and bell ringers. Before we go to virtual labs and bell ringers, let's talk about those science places. I've gone in there and I've, hunted around and opened things and looked at it, and it's really cool. Just a note, I was at the time I was becoming a brand new teacher. If my wife and I had stayed in Florida, I probably would have become a middle school science teacher. Or I could have, because I was doing history 6 through 12, or I was doing middle school science, and that was one of my favorites. And I was getting dual certified, that type of thing. And
oh wow!
And I was all excited about it. And her master's was calling her, and I told her, well, just go wherever you get accepted, and I'm sure they need teachers there. So one of the places was in North Carolina, and so I got certified there, do both, and then we end up at Georgia, because Georgia Tech offers us money, and we go to Georgia Tech, and we go to Georgia, and I find out that I need 2 more classes if I'm going to get certified in middle school science. So I stuck with history.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So I was this
They're
close.
Both very important.
Yes.
Yes.
But it was, it was neat, because I'm fooling around in there looking at your the different tabs and such. So let's talk about these resources. I mean, tell everybody what's found in those science tabs.
Well, there's a variety of resources. Like you said, the idea is that they're active learning resources. Active learning resources are resources that engage the students in learning, participating in the lesson. It's more than just showing them a video or even just having them read a text. They have to participate throughout the lesson. So some of the interactives are present. They're interactive presentations, really. So, for example, photosynthesis. The interactive starts by asking the student to click on or select the object or the source of all energy for life on Earth, or the source of energy for life on Earth. And the idea is that the student has to read what is requested of them, look at the picture, and then select the sun. And then it moves on to, that starts very basic. They can figure that out pretty quickly, but they have to read every page and do what it says in order to progress through the presentation and get to the end where they can sign their name and take a screenshot of it and send it to their teacher and say, I did it. But every step of the way, it builds on the concept a little bit more, and they include little challenges where eventually in the photosynthesis interactive, it has the chemical reactions that take place, and they have to arrange the different parts and identify, what is needed for photosynthesis and what is produced during photosynthesis. And by the end of it, they should have a much more developed understanding of the photosynthesis process. That's just one example. That's what I would call an interactive presentation. But we also have some that are like storylines that are kind of like escape rooms. The student is a participant in the sense that they're including in the storyline. The interactive for the states of matter, it's called My Science Teacher's House is Not Haunted. Yeah, and the idea of it has a thunder in the background, and it looks kind of spooky. Teachers love this. Is the most popular interactive, by the way, and the teachers use it around Halloween time. And the storyline is that the student kicks a soccer ball into their teacher's house, and their teacher says, "I will only give you your soccer ball back if you can make it through my haunted house." And the teacher uses all kinds of little tricks using states of matter to try to scare the student. But the student says, "You don't scare me. I know my science. I can get through this, no problem." And so it just goes through and has all kinds of little questions and things that the students can do to demonstrate understanding and learn about the states of matter and the changing of states of matter. So that's an example of maybe one of the escape rooms. And then there's simulations and all kinds of different activities that are meant to just really engage the students in different kinds of ways.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Especially where you're challenged like that to try and figure out how to do or solve or move forward in whatever the activity is. That's good stuff. So I want to make sure I clarify something. So what's cool here is that these are resources for the teachers to use with students, right? So if I'm a middle school teacher, a science teacher, then I could send the kids to, or is that how it works?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're web pages. You just send the teachers just send the students the link, and the teachers use them in a variety of ways. Sometimes teachers will go through them as a class. They have these awesome smart boards in classrooms now, these giant, TV type things. And so they can have they can go through it as a class. I know lots of teachers love doing that, and they get the students to come up and, take turns, controlling what happens next. Or a lot of times, I think more often than not, teachers will send their students the link, and then they might work on them in groups, or they'll work on them individually during class. And what I really love about this, when I hear from teachers about how they use it in this way, is that it provides that opportunity for teachers to work with students one-on-one. The students are all independently learning. They're going through the interactives, but then the teacher can go around and ask students questions. And from your teaching too, like those relationships and being able to work with those students one-on-one, that's priceless. And that's what this does, is it gives that chance that, okay, everybody's doing something productive and they're engaged. Okay, so now this child right here, I know is struggling. So I can come over there and help them a little bit while all the other kids are working.
That's so cool. That's, what I like about this is that it actually acts as the teacher has some other opportunities to work with the kids without having to sweat the little stuff here, because you've created this for them, and they go in there and get the kids working on this and get the input that they need from it. So I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'd also like to add too is that they're ready to go. Like the teachers are so busy. I wonder if the average person realize how busy teachers are. Now, from your teaching experience, right? How much time did you spend in the evenings grading papers and lesson planning and writing emails back to parents? What would you say?
I don't know how I'd estimate it, but I was also, just as a side note, depending on what part of my teaching that you're talking to me at, I was also goalie coach for the soccer team, which I did boys and girls. And then I was also yearbook sponsor. And at another school, I was the theater sponsor. So,
wow. Yeah. So you were busy. Your time was very precious.
Yes.
Right?
So with those grades and all that sort of stuff, I was up usually pretty late at night. So I can't even venture to say how much time, but each of those activities, when I was doing them, they all weren't at the same time. They were over a period of years at different times in my life. The only things that happened together was yearbook and soccer, but it was like that took time.
Right. Yeah. If you have anything extra that you do beyond, and then, many teachers have their own kids and a life outside of teaching that they would like to attend to. And so teachers' time is super precious, and that is definitely on my mind. And I want to make things that are easy for them to assign. And a lot of the resources on the website actually include additional resources that include Google Forms and worksheets that are all ready to go, and saving the teachers that precious time so that they can use it for grading, lesson planning, or all the other things that are in life.
Well, that's awesome, because because you really hit the nail on the head. What a teacher's looking for is they need a way to help them find time somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, could see how your resources would do that. I mean, especially if you got this lab, or you've got these engaging activities in which you give them, and so then they can focus on whatever else it is that they need to focus on at the time. Good stuff, especially like you have this tab called Bell Ringers. So can you talk about why you included the bell ringers?
Yeah, so the bell ringers are a work in progress right now, but I have a lot of earth science bell ringers available, and we're working on life science right now. The idea behind the bell ringers are that they provide a thought-provoking question that the students can answer in their science notebooks when they walk into the classroom. While you're doing all those things as a teacher that you have to do, you have to take attendance, and this student needs to go to the bathroom, or all those little things that the beginning, the first 5 minutes of class are usually, there's quite a bit going on, but the students can come in, get settled, and have on their beautiful smartboard a beautiful graphic that shows some kind of natural phenomena or some kind of really interesting science in action image, and a question that is presented to them. And it's not going to be a short answer question. It's something that they have to actually put some thought into. Like for example, there's one question that has a graphic or an artist's rendition of what the galaxy would look like if you were able to, get beyond the galaxy and take a picture. And then the question is, why can't we take a picture? Why does this have to be an artist's rendering of our galaxy as opposed to a picture from outside our galaxy? So the students have to really talk about it. And what I'm including underneath all of the bell ringer questions are possible misconceptions, common misconceptions that students might have about that particular topic. And then I'm looking for additional resources that teachers can use with that question. But addressing misconceptions is a huge part of science teaching. Our students come in with all kinds of ideas, and a lot of times, it's hard to address those ideas, the misconceptions, unless you really identify them and then replace it with something different. And so that's really the goal. But I have a lot of work to do with the bell ringers. I want to add many, many, many more.
Well, it's awesome, because what a cool thing to think about, though, because that's something that I know teachers are always looking for different ideas about how to do something at the beginning of class that will have something to do with what they're teaching for the day, but get them started right at the beginning, come in, and so have you provide them where they could kind of go in there, pick and choose some things. That's terrific. Good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the thing is that we don't need every teacher reinventing the wheel, right?
Right.
You want to be able to, like, one person or a group of people put a lot of thought into making something that's really high quality, and then lots and lots and lots of people can use that. That's the power of the internet, right?
You got that right. That is something that if I could go back in time and take something with me between YouTube and now it has to be able to work too, by the way, but if I could take YouTube and parts of the internet that allow me to do quick research,
yes.
It would be so much. That just powerful tools right there. So one of the other tabs that you have there is the virtual labs tool, and what is science going to be without a lab? And all sciences, they got to have some lab component, because if they don't, that wouldn't be as exciting. Talk about your virtual labs tab.
Okay, yeah. So one of the first interactive for the labs is that safety rules interactive, and there's 30 safety rules. And I remember when I was teaching science that lab safety day was nobody's favorite day. You have to do lab safety day. It's important. And it's important that the students really understand all of the safety rules, but it's not generally a fun topic to teach, and it's not a fun topic to learn. But the safety lab interactive. It's kind of a fun, silly way, but also serious because safety is serious. It covers all of the rules. It'll have pictures of the students, like which of these students is following this rule, and you'll have one student who's like standing upside down on the lab table and like doing things they're not supposed to do, and they're like, oh, but that student is behaving properly, and it goes through each of the rules, and then there's a crossword that goes with it that the students have to use the interactive to help make sure that they really understand the rules, and then a lab safety contract. So any teachers listening, science teachers listening, that I really encourage you to go check that out, because that'll help make that beginning of the school year lab safety day a little bit more fun and engaging, and probably force the students to actually pay attention a bit more to the lab safety rules as they're going through it. Now, the other interactives that are virtual labs, like one of them is it's called the virtual heating ice lab, and it walks the students through taking measurements and recording their data, and then graphing their data of the temperature of ice as it's heated and then eventually boils. And then the students, after they graph the data, they have to answer questions about the data that they graphed. So analyzing data. And then there's simulations. There's one called Candy Shop, where the students have to measure the mass and density of different candies. And the simulation allows them to use a digital, virtual digital scale, and use water displacement or length, width, and height to measure the volume, and then calculate density, and then compare. And then the challenge is to compare the different densities and answer questions. And so that's the virtual labs is definitely a great way to simulate what it might be like in the lab. If you can't do hands-on activity, it's great for preparation for a lab. And it's also, what I've found or heard from teachers is it is when a student is absent during lab day, what do you do? Do you stay after school and, wait for that student to complete the lab? Or sometimes it's all nice to have like, okay, well, you weren't here for the lab, but we have this other resource for you to go through this in replacement of it. So, yeah.
I love that. It's hey, and just as a note, yes, it's kind of like, if you want to drive a science teacher nuts, be absent on the day when some massive lab that has to be set up is set up and you miss it. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And you expect to just be able to make it up. And it's like, yeah, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Labs are a lot of work for science teachers. Any parents out there listening, if you're, your science teachers, labs are a lot of work. Getting all the resources ready. And then during the lab, it's a lot of work. You got to make sure all the kids are doing what they're supposed to do and not doing anything dangerous. And then the cleanup and the grading of the lab reports. It's lab day is a lot. It involves a lot for teachers.
That it does. Awesome stuff. I mean, you have all this cool stuff. And one of the things that you reference in Virtual Science Teachers in the platform is that you talk about your team. And I was wondering if you could talk about where your team comes from.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. Yes. So I have an amazing board of directors. It's a group of professionals with extensive experience in education technology, product development, governance, which is really important for a nonprofit organization, and finance. We have a CPA. And so when I filed Virtual Science Teachers as a nonprofit organization, I actually just used LinkedIn to reach out to anybody who might be interested in serving on my board. And I had tremendous response. It was very exciting to me because I didn't know what kind of response I was going to get. Right now, it's just me with this website and this idea that I wanted to make happen, but really not 100% sure how to make that. There's a lot to learn. And so I started with finding a board. And so I ended up with 8 people, and they all not only had incredible experience that is very useful to us growing, but they all have a passion for equitable science learning for everybody. That was just something that I was looking for in each of the people that I asked to come on and be part of the team, and all of them just really cared about this particular area. And so we meet every month, and it's awesome. They are so supportive and encouraging, and provide a lot of help. I was just in a meeting with one of them a little bit ago, and he was helping me figure out some Google Ads stuff that I don't know anything about, but he's helping me, and it's great.
That is awesome. Very cool. Well, thanks for talking about that. That's cool. And if you go to the website, listeners, you can see she has the different board members listed there, and you see their pictures and so forth, which is really cool. So nice stuff. So with all this being said, I mean, you've told us a little bit about your plans and adding more here and more there. What's one big thing that you really want to make sure you take care of? I mean, like if this was your, like a Christmas wish list, or like your birthday wish list or something like this, that if I could take care of this tomorrow, what would that one thing be that you want to get done first?
Well, the ultimate goal is to have incredibly engaging and effective resources for all K through 12 science standards, and have it easy for teachers to find the standard, or the resources according to their state standards, or if they use the national standards. That at the end of the day, that's really what I'm looking for, is to have all the resources, so that any day a teacher can say, okay, we're going to do a virtual science teachers interactive today. That's all we're doing. And they can know that they can find a valuable resource there.
Awesome. Love it. And, Suzanne, before we close, if someone wanted to connect and find out more, where would you send them?
Well, the virtualscienceteachers.org website has a contact tab, and it has my email. So you could do admin@virtualscienceteachers.com, or you can email me at Suzanne@virtualscienceteachers.com, and I will respond promptly.
Excellent. I'll put that in my show notes so that people can find it very easily and hopefully reach right out to you. So good stuff. So I have two more questions to ask you, and they're just questions I like to ask my guests. And the first one goes like this: how do you keep going when so much is going on that you may want to quit?
That's a great question. I wouldn't be being honest if I didn't say there's some days I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done? But those are short moments that don't last very long. But I'll tell you that the number one thing that really keeps me going is feedback from the teachers. That when I get those emails that come in, and I know that what our resources have helped them, that can motivate me for quite a while. And then my board of directors, they really are just so encouraging and helpful to me. And so I really, because they are all sacrificing their time and energy and experiences in helping me, that I want to, be a great team member back to them. And then finally, my family, my family's just been incredible. So I have the most supportive husband and kids anyone could ask for. So I want them to be proud of me, and I appreciate their sacrifices. And so I keep working hard.
That's awesome. I love it. Last question. Do you have a teacher in your past who made a difference in your life? If so, who was it? And what would you say if given a chance to say thank you?
Well, I have written Mr. Steinmetz and let him know that, yes, he was my ninth grade biology teacher. And I was one of those kids who goofed off. I did not pay attention. He probably looks at me like, what? She became a science teacher? But no, he was one of those science teachers, one of those teachers that not only was just an effective teacher, but also clearly cared about his students. And I just remember that he was just supportive of his students in every way he could be, and I really appreciated that.
That is so awesome. I love it. And it's so cool when We have those people that we can name that had some impact like that. So good stuff. Suzanne, it was great talking with you. I mean, Virtual Science Teachers is an awesome resource for everyone. Thanks so much for sharing and wishing the best in all you do.
Yes, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Hey, you have been listening to Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.